Welcome to Shootin' the Sport, where I sit down with your favorite coaches, athletes, and people in the industry to just shoot the, you know. I'm Matison Little, and today we have our first ever coach on Shootin' the Sport. And it only made sense to me that this coach would be someone that has had a direct impact on me and my career. Right out of college, I was hunting for opportunities, and my first consistent opportunity came from the University of North Florida, where I had direct access to cover multiple seasons of their basketball programs. And the head coach for the men's basketball team, Matthew Driscoll, gave me full access to his players and really gave me a shot to build my resume and grow as a broadcaster. So in today's episode, we talk about the importance of building relationships in the sports industry. He tells us recruiting isn't that difficult, and he even talks a little bit about life as a grandpa. Coach Driscoll, welcome to Shootin' the Sport.
Hey, let me tell you something now. Shooting the Sport, that's a great title. Definitely gets your
Thank you.
attention.
Yes.
So super job by you, and always been a huge fan, and always loved the way you've approached not just the profession, but also to how it intertwines with the personal part as well too, and how those two things really mirror together and kind of how they merge and overlap as well. So really super proud of you and super excited to be with you today.
Thank you. I wanted to have you on because you and your program were the first place that really gave me a true opportunity to get consistent work in the sideline world. And so you and your program have always had a special spot in my heart. And so when I started this, I was like, no better first coach figure to have on here than Matthew Driscoll.
Well, thank you. It's been an amazing ride, 16 years, and obviously my staff, several of them have been with, Coach Kennan the whole time, Coach Evans, 16 years, but a short stint at Tech, and Coach Perkins since '06 was a manager for us at Baylor, and then of course my own son on staff who was part of the first two championship teams. So it's kind of neat how this whole thing has transpired, and now I know I got a grandchild, a boy, Baylor Scott, and he was born November 1st, and then several of our players have either had children or now are starting to have children. The younger ones, so to speak, are starting to have children as well too. So those little ones are starting to come around, and I'm 60 now, so when you get older, sometimes this stuff just kind of evolves, and I think that's what we'll get into a little bit later, kind of how this whole thing has evolved.
Right, and that's one thing that I love about your program and the University of North Florida in general is the feeling of a family, and that's something that you've always instilled in your athletes and something you've built with your program. Where does that coaching philosophy come from? What is your coaching philosophy in terms of building these tight-knit groups that I've witnessed firsthand?
I really think since I've got into the profession as an assistant, I was a head coach at a Division III school before in the 90s. And when I was there in Pittsburgh, I was also a fifth grade teacher by day. And so if you can imagine balancing that, newly married, son, and going to graduate schools, it was kind of a lot. And so family, and Carrie's a cheerleading coach, and Chase is always at practice, and then the guys are watching Chase, and the guys are, and the cheerleaders are watching Chase. And so I think it started to evolve there. But when I got in with Larry Scheid at Wyoming, really felt it as I went through that and was with him. And then, if you can imagine, in '03, so after that family, we get fired, which again is another part of family, right? So what happens? And so Coach worked extremely hard to help get us our next whatever. And that ended up being at Valparaiso for a short 7 weeks. And then in '03, one player murdered another player at Baylor. And so if you can imagine going into you can't imagine it. It's unimaginable. You talk about family, building trust, doing those things. So I was able to really for 6 years have that opportunity. And then of course, and I'll talk about it a little bit further once we get into this, but it's okay to disagree, and you can agree to disagree. And disappointment is so much a part of life, and that's family.
Right.
Nobody wants to be disciplined in the moment, right? Only when it comes to fruition is when they're like, thank goodness, right? But if you have a disciplined commitment to consistency, whether that be with how you approach things or the way in which things present themselves, and so you don't ever want to burn a bridge. So in '98, Coach Moon, the athletic director at the University of Wyoming, wanted me to stay. And because of that family and because of what Coach Schott meant to me and going to Clemson, I wasn't going to do it. But I did it in the right way. I disappointed him and I disagreed with him. But fast forward 2009, so 11 years later, he's the same athletic director that hired me at the University of North Florida. Matison, when you talk about family, it's greater than the program. It's not just administration, not just facilities, not just the broadcast crew, not just the guy that drives us and loves to drive us, and or the thousands of people or the students or the people on campus or whatever it is. It's just, we really want these guys to understand that being the difference in people's lives is so critical to what we can do every day, especially with a smile and a please and a thank you. And so early on time's late, late's unacceptable is it's just the way we do it. And then over communicate. Like, communication prevents disaster. We all know that. So over communicate. But then maybe most importantly, many hands make light work. And the ability to be grateful and to have and so that's why we pour in so much to these young men, to make them as good of men. If it's to be husbands, great. If it's to be fathers, great. But it's to go out into society because it's such a different deal out there.
Right.
And so the more we can pour in and the more they can be with our families or be around differences or be around that kind of environment, aura, whatever you want to call it. I just think when you think family or you talk family and people say it,
yeah,
in my opinion, it's awesome that they say it. It's awesome that you want it to be part of, your culture. But in the same breath, you also know it when you see it.
Right.
And in my opinion, that's what I love.
Well, I definitely feel being part of your family for a short time.
Oh, you're always in a family. Yeah, there's no short time. We don't kick anybody out.
Well,
We don't care if they leave. We don't care. One of our guys yesterday, I just texted him happy birthday. Who cares? Your family.
Right. Well, I appreciate it, and I feel like being part of the family, you can see it firsthand that you genuinely care about every person that steps foot in your arena, whether it be a fan or a player or me or anybody. What is your coaching why? Why are you in it? Why do you care so much? And why do you pour so much into everybody that's involved?
Sometimes your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. And I really enjoy people. I enjoy differences. I enjoy learning. I'm a big learner. I like to see what's going on and how that lays itself out. But I don't know. I've always had that. So I wanted to be a catcher in baseball because you always got to, because that's the only position you can talk to somebody the whole game. And it sounds nuts, but it's just, I don't know. I just was wired that way, and I really, really enjoy it. And someday, when I'm done with this, I'll probably do something in the radio avenue and just get on a talk show or do something like that and just try to get people on and just like the special teams guy for the Jaguars befriended us a couple weeks ago, and he wants to have breakfast, and I'm really, really, like, I got so many questions for him, not about the Jaguars, not that I don't like the Jaguars, but I'm like, how do you think? How do you, like, because we have special situations,
right?
Under OB, side OB, late game, end of the clock, like, and so how do you process? So like all that kind of stuff? Like I want to learn and I just want to dig in and just so. I've always been that way. My dad was a bread driver.
Okay.
Drove a bread for 36 years and delivered bread in Pittsburgh and blue collar. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom with 5 boys. And you can't imagine what that was like. And so I was the baby. And I think because of that, though, I was always with older guys. I was always around adults. I was always like that. And I was the first one to graduate from my family. And that was a big deal
Right.
to my dad. My mom was dead already, passed. And, but, you just don't think about that stuff. I just think because of the way I was brought up and I was a worker my whole life. I've been a worker my whole life, like just since I was super, super young, delivering newspapers and parking cars. Jackie Sherrill, the famous football coach, he did some things that weren't famous, but parked his car one time when he was the head coach at Pitt, and just I've done so many things, just a plethora of things. If it's a job, I've done it in some form. I just spoke to the construction. They had their senior night, and it's called Hard Hat Recognition or something.
Okay.
I did the deal, and they had me come in as the keynote speaker, and I did but I was in construction, and I used to sell fireproofing and yada yada. But when my boss also built homes, so I built homes, and I was a laborer. I was $5 an hour, and I started telling the story, and I said I was $5 an hour. I said, but I'm gonna tell you what I was the best at. And I said, you know what? Let's see if anybody's any good. What do you think I was the best at? And one guy said, I bet you were a great sweeper. And I said, that was exactly right. And it was crazy. Like it was just like that. I'm OCD. So I think and I think my boss knew that. And so I think that attention to detail, and the wires go down the walls and they drill the holes in the little,
Right.
Well, I'm getting all that out, and sometimes he would get upset, like Driscoll, like we got other things we got to do. And I'm like, bro, you asked me to do this, so I'm going to do it. So I think I'm just wired a little bit awkwardly, and I know that I'm awkward, but I'm cool with that. And I think people have a lot of fun with me as far as like, I don't want to say making fun of me, but they do.
No, I always have a blast when I get to talk to you.
So it's just so it's. But I think just growing up like that and being around all that and I don't know, I'm just inquisitive, I guess.
How do you go from delivering newspapers and being a sweeper and doing all of those things to getting into coaching? Where was the start of Coach Driscoll?
Oh, great! That's a great question. I don't like the word idol, but the guy that I admired, Joey Greer, I just admired, and I was just an 8th grader, young kid. Well, he came this year, so I'm 60, he's 60. So let's say 5 years. He's like 65, let's say.
Right.
And he flew down with his son and surprised me and came to a game. I had not seen Joey in 40-some years.
Wow.
Now, he had sent me one email. I think it was our first championship. He said, hey, Coach, really proud of you. Bellevue's proud of you, yada, yada, yada. However, I wanted to let you know that I always thought when you were your daddy's manager that you were always going to be a coach. And I don't have any recollection of being my daddy's manager. But I know my dad coached my brother's Catholic, grade school team.
Right.
And so I remember, like, I could care less about towels and waters. I did what I was supposed to do, but I cared more about timeouts and halftime so I could go out and shoot. And so so I was very, very, very locked into that. And then once I was going, I didn't do well in school my first semester, so I came back home, and then that's when I started getting all kind of odd jobs and yada, yada, yada. I went through a divorce, and then I told my dad, I was like 25 maybe, and I told my dad, I'm like I know like God wants me to coach and God wants me to teach. I'm positive. You got to help me. And so he said, okay. He said, I'll pay for you to go back to school. And so I was working all kind of odd jobs, and I was driving about an hour north of Pittsburgh at Slippery Rock University, and I was going back and forth, and I got my degree at 27. So I was a late guy.
Yeah. And
then there's just so many God stories about how just I'm gonna pull something up real quick
of course.
and show you something. And so I believe in this wholeheartedly. And I believe that if you embrace where your feet are planted with genuine purpose, the key to all of that is, and my dad said it this way. My dad said, treat others the way they're supposed to, you want to be treated. However, it don't matter how they're treating you.
Love that.
So don't worry about how they're treating you. Just treat them the way you want to be treated. It doesn't mean you have to break bread with them. It's irrelevant, right?
Right.
But if you look at this, like you can see this up here, this is at Slippery Rock where I got my degree, and then Butler Community College. And so basically, when you look at it from a big lens, what was the deciding whatever? I was 20, so it was 84, so I was 20. And I come back out of college and had like a 1-2 my first semester, and I did better my second semester, but whatever. And I just was like, not lost, but I was like, whatever, you know. And my dad, our rule was you either go to the military, you go to college, which I was the only one, you go to military, or you're out.
Right.
So, okay. Well, then there's a lady down the street, Sally Mogg, technically saved my life. She's like, hey, I'll hire you. You can work at the McDonald's. Yada. Well, if I'm going to work at the McDonald's, so like cleanest bathrooms in town, best tasting French fries, because I cleaned the vat like it's nobody's business. Like I could sear a burger, like I could, like whatever.
Right.
Our milkshake machine, I made sure it wasn't down. And so, but with that, they see that. And I'm 19. They're like, oh man, like this dude's got a future. So next thing you know, I'm in management. Next thing you know, I'm getting out of management, and they're like, hey, we got a task. You're going to McKees Rocks, where my daddy's from. You're going to McKees Rocks, and you're going to go to this store, and it's a 3F store, which is quality, service, and cleanliness, like 3F. And so here's the deal. You're going to get bonuses. You're going to do this, this, and this, right? So it's me and Ralph Donardo. I'll never forget it. So we go, and you know, obviously, like anything else in life, it doesn't take much to fix something. You just go in and just
Right.
like here, you just go in and do what you do. Well, and that now by this time, I'm going, there's Hamburger U. There's a real place, Hamburger U, and you work your way up. And now I'm thinking, I'm 20. So, of course, I'm thinking this. Okay, I'm going to own 5 McDonald's. I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm a retired 40, all this stuff. Like, I'm flying. Side note, the old head coach, Pat Dennis at Citadel, when he left coaching and got let go, he owned 5 McDonald's and just retired about 4 years ago and lives up in Destin. So anyways, I was on the right track. I just was on the wrong train. But anyways, so I'm doing this. And there were these projects right around the corner. And in the projects were some guys that I had known from playing against each other in pickup, or our 2 high schools were rival high schools when I was playing. A guy walks in the front door. And I'm like, Bobby, what are you doing? So Bobby Farrington played at Quaker Valley, which is down near Swickley, where like wealthy. So Quaker Valley was in between Pittsburgh, me, I was the next town, which was Bellevue. So we lived in a blue collar area. And then Bobby comes in. I'm like, last time I seen him, he had stuck my stuff on a glass. They had beat us, you know what I mean? That was like 3, 4, whatever it was.
Right.
And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, Driscoll, I need a favor. I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, well, my grandmother lives in the project, so I'm living with my grandmother. I said, okay. I said, what do you need? He said, I need a job. I said, okay, whatever. I'll hire you. I don't know if he's any good, but he's a heck of a player. So anyways, so he comes, so he said, I said, what, just out of curiosity, what do you need a job? He's like, I'm going to Butler County. That was Butler County Community College. I'm going to Butler County Community College. And I'm like, what is that? And he said, I'm going to JUCO, and I'm going to go to school. And you know what? I've really wanted to. Well, come play pickup with me. And so, and again, I could talk to you for 3 hours about how God just laid this out. I mean, 3 hours. But again, if Bobby don't walk in, I don't know. But it's also free will.
Right.
we have free will to make decisions. And I was like, and so all this stuff started transpiring, and then it's really cool. The whole story is really actually interesting. I guess
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's interesting for people to read or it'd be inspiring for people or whatever. And because it wasn't normal,
Right.
um, but it was really, really, really cool. And so that got me going into the coaching, and then that led to this, that led to that, and so it's just a neat. It's just life is just, and when I do weddings, I've officiated 9 players and a couple staff, and I'm going to officiate 2 more coming up in October, Dorian James, and then next April, Jose Placer, and
Awesome.
that when you do those and you start putting these dots on a map, I encourage people at the weddings, like, you should try this because everybody's here somehow. Some are young, college friends, whatever. Some of you are, fairly older. Like, you should go back and look and see. I think there was 13 or 14 dots on that map that were critical or pivotal or whatever you want to call
Right.
it. You don't put them all, but but pretty cool how that all transpires. But again, that stuff doesn't happen if you don't embrace, where your feet are planted.
Right. And all of those kind of connect in a cool way and lead you to where you are now. So you've been at UNF now for 16 seasons. What has been the biggest change? I know your career's been more than 16 seasons, but even just since 2009, so the last decade or so,
Sure.
what's been the biggest evolution of the college game that you've seen, and how has that kind of affected your job?
I would say definitely the pace of the game, 3-pointers, the skill level of guys continues to just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. However, I do believe that 18 to 22-year-olds are 18 to 22-year-olds. And just because you're getting paid a lot of money doesn't mean you don't have girl problems or locker room problems or family problems or academia problems or whatever. It just means you're getting paid, whatever to have those problems.
Right.
So I don't think a lot of people talk about, the players change, and that they haven't. Like, they still want discipline. They still want you to love them. They still want, they still want all those things. I just think you probably have to answer why a whole lot more than you've ever had to in the past. I do think in the next 5 years, maybe 10, we'll see what the COVID did
Right.
and how the COVID really affected these kids from, doing this to, not going to school to being in a shelter, pushed away from human beings and not having that year and a half of communication, especially during those critical years. If they were 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever that was, that'll be interesting. There's no doubt 2018, the transfer portal, the multiple transfer opportunities, the ability to play right away, never having to sit out. That's definitely been huge, huge.
Yeah.
We're very grateful from an academia graduating standpoint. Everyone's graduated, some with multiple degrees, obviously, because they were able to stay in school for 5, 6 years. So that's been a huge adjustment. I think recruiting's changed a lot just from the aspect of, it's just reality, like, how much you paying me?
Right.
Well, how about we get to know each other first? And so, but it does cut to the chase. And
Right.
so if you don't have, then the conversation's over. We wish you well and we're out, because 38 years, like, we don't need practice recruiting. Like, we know
Right.
how to recruit. Like, that's the one thing about us. We evaluate, we always have. In 2009, when Andy Katz wrote a report for ESPN, he did a story on the best hires in America. And there were 5 of them. One of them was John Calipari
Okay.
at Kentucky. One of them was Tony Bennett at Virginia. One of them was Sean Miller at Arizona. The other one got let go, unfortunately. That was Ken Bone at Washington State. And the 5th guy was the only outlier of all of them. And it was me. It was us. And he called me and he said, Driss, like nobody says you're a recruiter. And I'm like, well, I think that's all a fallacy.
Right.
Like recruiting's not difficult. Anybody can recruit. Anybody. It's not hard. What's difficult is evaluating. And then what's even more difficult is developing and helping them to become and pour in the best version that they can possibly be and understanding, work brings profit. And so recruiting is simple because like I remember at Clemson, like we had a guy named Bruce Martin. He was never out on the road, but when a kid came on a visit, he was one of the most fun people to be around. And the guy they loved him. And so like just because you go on the road and you sleep in a hotel and you do all this stuff and you pound your chest that I go all these places and I do all that's irrelevant. But what's relevant is when you do that, you build relationships. The recruiting aspect of it is about relationships.
Right.
It's not about I flew this many miles and I have this many room nights and I got Marriott Gold status and all that bull crap that people talk about. It's about building those relationships, loving on those people, and it's crazy because one of the biggest questions you always want to ask when you go in someone's office is, hey, like just out of curiosity, there's anybody around here that we should be looking at that maybe we don't know about? Is there anybody in the league that we should be looking at? And it does two things. Number one, it immediately gives them a sense of, wow, coach really wants to know my opinion or my value or like what I know. And then secondly, you get some leads on some guys. I think that's the one thing people in this profession, I hope it doesn't go by the wayside because I think those relationships are really, really, really critical. And the other thing too is we've gotten a lot of managers recruiting. Some of our best managers, we walked in and the players wasn't good enough or the player wasn't whatever. But man, that manager's really good, and then all of a sudden, Jeremiah, the kid I was telling you about with the Celtics.
Right.
Like he texted us from cafeteria, coach, I can't wait. And thanks for allowing me to be a part of the program and yada, yada, yada. And so in your mind, you're like, it's a manager. In our mind, it's like, no, it's a critical part to what we do. These people are so critical to our guys becoming the best version because we can only touch them for so long. So we got to pour into them so they can pour into them. And so it's just a cycle. And it's just, we've been really, really, really special at evaluating and developing people. And that's what I love about our staff. And that's why I think we've been able to sustain. But I think whatever term you want to use, lightning in a bottle.
Right.
Chaz Lanier picked 11th. We finished tied for 4th. And so, we've just got to keep on keeping on and keep pouring in and keep pouring in. Because at the end of the day, that's our mission. And that's really all we can do until they decide or somebody decides, maybe me, I decide that, it's time to whatever.
Right. On that note, do you have any career goals that you've yet to achieve, or what is kind of up and coming for Coach Driscoll?
I think, the NCAA tournament, obviously, and winning a game and doing all those things is great. I personally, I'd love to coach my grandson one day and help my grandson if it's something in his cards. But my grandson has been an incredible joy for me, Carrie as well. It's just, it's an amazing, I didn't have any idea, obviously, you don't know except your own. And so it was just amazing when he was born. It was amazing to see life and to see life breathe and to know that there's a responsibility that we have as grandparents. When our boys were born, Carrie's mom, my dad was alive and then passed. My mom was already passed, which is unfortunate. She never got to meet Carrie nor my boys, and we've been married 30 plus years now. And when you have this bundle of joy, this in front of you, it's an incredible responsibility
Yeah.
for us to help him um, become the best version of him. So I guess I guess it's kind of like our daily mission when we get up. Is no dirt on us, and just grateful that God allowed us another opportunity, make the bed every day. So start with a win every day, and then go at it. And that's why we've always been. That's all we've always been, talking about, being 1-0, and how important being 1-0 is, and that'll always be, something that's critical in my life.
Well, your grandson is super lucky. He has a great grandpa. And
Grandma's pretty special now.
no,
She's Lolly and I'm Pop. Lolly.
I love it.
I didn't make it up.
Well, it's great and it's fitting, but just the short time that, like I said, I was with you guys firsthand, you've been a mentor to me. You've had a positive impact on me. And so your grandson is going to grow up with the best grandpa or pop. And you will do amazing at grandpa life because you've done amazing being a mentor to so many throughout your career. And I just really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your wisdom and all the things, and for always just checking in and being a positive influence in everyone's life.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, and I would say this to you and to all young people. If there's things that you want to do and there's things that you aspire to, obviously you want to make sure that you seek as much as you can, you knock as much as you can, and you ask as much as you can, because some things are so, like, it's like that, and all of a sudden it's bam and it's changed. And obviously Matthew West has a great song called Motions, and it talks about living with regret, and the one thing that we don't want to do, and we're all human, right? And so should I have done this, should I have done this, should I, all those different, that's what free will makes it so great. But I would say for young people, just continue to really embrace where your feet are planted, because I think the microwave, though it does make things hot or hotter, it's not the same as an oven. And I would say the ebbs and flows and the challenges and the adversities are just part of it. Failure we all know it's part of it. It doesn't define, it refines, right? It's just something that transpires, and it might not be a lot. It might just be a quick one, or it might be several ones in a row. But I would say to you, just really embrace where your feet are. And doesn't mean you can't move them. That's not my point. 16 years is a long time. Think about this, I'm 60, and I lived in Pittsburgh for 32. So basically half of my life in Pittsburgh and a quarter of my life here. Like, that's a lot. Like, a quarter of my life, I've lived in the same place, which in this profession is unheard of sometimes. So really, really, really embrace where you're at, because I think if you just really understand the difference you can be in people's lives, I think it'll make everything else become much more clear. And when you have an alertness and clarity, I think focus follows.